Well, there, in the New Priorities Network that has been around for a couple of years now, that involves the labor movement, it involves peace activists, it involves environmental groups, student groups, all kinds of people in the country that are dealing with the problem of the priorities of the budget and the country and want to change those priorities, have formed this New Priorities Network. And it included Progressive Democrats of America, PDA, which is an organization that is not part of Congress, but it is designed to be like the public face of the Progressive Caucus. It's very closely tied. So PDA was involved, and we, U.S. Labor Against the War, got involved in discussions with them about wouldn't it be good if there would be a much closer coordination between this burgeoning social movements around priorities on the one hand and the Progressive Caucus on the other hand. The new leadership in the Progressive Caucus, Grijalva and Keith Ellison, were very interested in that. And they invited me to come to the national retreat that they had as the Progressive Caucus last January. It was in Philadelphia. The result was thinking through what it might look like. And here's what we thought that it might look like. And it has to evolve through budget cycles. So we have a budget cycle coming up in January, February, March. So this is when we're going to start implementing this thing and trying it out. Here's the idea. If you have a member of Congress who's in the Progressive Caucus, at the end of January, when they're beginning to think through this budget stuff, let's have a forum that congressman and his staff or her staff comes to that public forum to hear testimony from the constituencies about what our priorities are. What do we want in that budget? Not a number, but what are the priorities? We don't want the military to be so big, we want more money for education, we want this, whatever it is that people want to come and talk about. And each part of this constituency will have its own organizational form. There'll be housing people, there'll be labor people, there'll be environmental people, there'll be these ones, those ones. And we'll all be united together in this new priorities network on the outside, talking to the Congress people on the inside about what we think that budget should look like. Then they go away, they come up with a budget, then they come back in March with their budget, and now there's another hearing where they report out, right? And there is now something of a base, a social base for that budget. So that it isn't just a few people sitting in a room coming up with a budget and sucking it out of their thumbs and then announcing it and then they go home. But there is a political process, a genuine political process that has been established, which does not now exist, and which cannot be established in one budget cycle, right? But it's going to be established over time as this thing unfolds, as we get to work with one another, as we get to know one another, as these issues get focused, and that's where we are. So what we're going to try to do, and we have a chapter of U.S. Labor Against the War, which UUP is part of, that's in New York City, that has about, a dozen or 14 locals, some very big, like 1199, some, pretty small, nonetheless important, UAW locals, we've got ASCME locals, we've got AFT, of course, through us and PSC. And what we're now trying to organize is a forum in New York City, probably at the end of January, where we're going to have one forum for the whole city, not in each district, but one forum, and we're going to try to get as many of those CPC members with themselves or their staff to come and listen to what the priorities should be in that budget. This is where you can go and get the details. And then they have even more detail. They have an executive summary, and then they have a much more detailed presentation that the Economic Policy Institute basically developed, that's where you really have the numbers. We passed this resolution last May, I guess, at the DA, in time for it to go to the AFT. And it went to the AFT, that AFT should, at the national level, cooperate. And it was approved at the committee level, but it was not made a priority. So it was referred to the Executive Council. The degree to which the political climate is hostile to unions is all the more likely that that's going to happen. The degree to which unions and the labor movement participates in the broad social movement for justice issues, we draw to us allies in that struggle. And if we are just on our own, for our own terms and conditions, it contributes to the idea that we're just a special interest. I think we have come here and done what we've come here to do.